Hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Uranium Market Minute. Today is Monday, April 11th, and this is episode number 103. My name is Justin Huhn. I'm your host. I'm the founder and publisher of the Uranium Insider Pro Newsletter, the only investing newsletter that focuses solely on uranium and publishes on a regular monthly basis. As always, nothing in this video is intended to be investing advice. I'm not your financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please always do your own due diligence when it comes to investing and always take responsibility for your own choices. All right. I hope that you had a great weekend. I had a very nice weekend. Definitely had some relaxation time, had some working in the yard time. And then, of course, Sunday's almost like partially a work day as we get ready for the coming trading week. I do always update the weekly watch list for members on Sundays before the ASX opens. So if you are a member and you don't check that out, please do every Sunday before the markets open. We were looking for a little bit of a pullback. We did see one this morning, although it wasn't much. Dip buyers showed up a couple hours into the day, and we saw the uranium equities hold up pretty well compared to a very weak tape across the broad markets. But we will go over that in the charts in just a moment. Before we do that, let's go ahead and run through the daily scoreboard. Spot price of uranium again continues to move northbound here, 63.50 a pound. Not making huge moves, but making consistent moves, even with very little buying going on in the market. We saw the spot price move up on Friday, even though Sprott did not purchase any pounds on Friday, nor did they raise any new capital on Friday. So Sprott is now sitting at a total NAV of 3.54 billion, $3.5 billion net asset value of the spot vehicle. Just huge. 13.4 million pounds purchased this year so far, 748 million in capital raised. They closed at a slight discount to NAV on Friday. The treasury currently sits at $75 million in cash. So they continue to chug along and gobble up pounds in the background. I think I figured out that they've purchased roughly about 1 million pounds a week since the ATM went live on average. And that's when they were out of the market largely for the bulk of the month of December. They just continue to chew away at the above ground mobile supply, which is a fantastic development for us, of course. Turning to the equity ETFs, URA reported no change in outstanding shares. URNM increased their outstanding shares by a very chunky 450,000 new shares. So that gave rise to 40.6 million in new mandated buying on Friday. I don't know if that's kind of this X factor from Sprott taking over URNM. We definitely did see increased flows into that vehicle after we had the news last week that Sprott did in fact get the shareholder votes to do so. So now URNM is in new hands, and I would argue they are in the best hands available to manage a vehicle like this. We can obviously see a fantastic job that they've done with the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, and we expect big things for this ETF going forward. Since January 1st, the URA has increased their outstanding shares by 23.8 million, URNM by 3.6 million. The inflows this year alone have gave rise to 708.9 million in mandated buying. This is a massive flywheel that's going on this year so far. And I would think that we would be much higher if it weren't for a weak tape across the broad markets for multiple months and a general kind of risk off environment in January going into February still. I think that there's still a lot of money on the sidelines here. And I think that that's yet to come into this market. Some of that has to do with liquidity. Some of it has to do, in my opinion, with just overall jitters by investors due to geopolitical events that are happening currently. But either way, money continues to flow into these vehicles, and that's what we track, and that's why it's so important. Let's see. So yeah, trading action, a pretty flat day on Friday, and we actually saw some nice dip buying today. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at the charts. URA down 0.76% today. Did trade all the way down to about 26.78, rebounded, closed at 27.29. Did see some dip buying come in. That's obviously a positive thing. And again, I wanted to note this golden cross, the 50-day rising sharply above the 200-day is a very good thing to see. And that's a very bullish indicator. And I think we are going to continue to chug higher within this longer term Livermore bullish accumulation cylinder. Indicators are looking positive. MACD crossing back up. Doesn't look super explosive here, but overall an uptrend. And I think we continue to move higher. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust just cannot sell off. I mean, this thing just chugs and chugs and chugs, dips every single down day. If you look back the past few weeks, has seen dip buying. We haven't seen a day close at its lows since, let's see, the second week of March. So it's almost been a month since we saw a sell-off that closed at lows for Sprott. So very, very bullish chart, just leading the sector in all ways. Cameco also had a pretty decent day, all things considered, up 1% after a very, very strong run. Cameco is up 50% since the lows in late January. There was a price target put out by RBC that basically is raising their price target to $50. Now that's Canadian. So we're looking at, excuse me. Currently, we're sitting at $38.75, and that price target was raised by RBC, like I mentioned, to $50. All right, so for the mailbag section, I had a question come into me about Japan. So there was some clarification being requested in terms of interpreting some news out of Japan. So basically, I wanted to elaborate on this a little bit because I think that it's a significant development. As everyone knows, Japan shut down all of their nuclear reactors following Fukushima. They had 53 or 54, I don't remember exactly. I believe it was 54 reactors up and running. That was about 10% of global demand, and that turned off overnight after Fukushima. Now, it took many years before they even started to consider restarting reactors. They have now restarted 11 reactors, and there's about a dozen more that are in the early stages or even advanced stages of the renewal process, going through all of the safety checks and getting all of the regulation approvals. But basically, Japan is coming back in terms of nuclear. So there was a quote that was published from the Prime Minister of Japan, Kishida. He stated, "We will make full use of power sources highly effective for decarbonization, such as renewable energy and nuclear power." Okay, so Japan's carbon goals, they want to be carbon free by 2050. And they want to reduce their carbon emissions by 46% by 2035. Now, what does that mean? They want nuclear to be 20 to 22% of the mix, of their energy mix, as a percentage of the grid. What does that mean? That means there's roughly another 12 to 15 reactors that they would need to restart in order to come back online to that level. So this is really important for a number of reasons. One, not only could we actually see reduced selling of Japanese inventories into the market. Now, we have seen some selling of Japanese inventory into the market over the years, right? A number of utilities know that their reactors are definitely not coming back online. There's a handful that have been fully decommissioned. Those are not coming back online. There are still many that can still come back online and might still come back online, especially if these plans play out. So it's not only it's a supply story, but it's a demand story. So if that secondary supply of Japanese inventories being sold back into the market slows down or stops entirely, that's obviously very bullish. That cuts off some supply from coming into the market. What it does also is if we actually see another 12 to 15 reactors come online, let's say in the next 5 years, we're going to see Japanese utilities sign new contracts. That's going to happen. Not every utility is sitting on large inventories. Okay, some are, some are not. So there are definitely some utilities that look like they have reactors that will be coming online in the next few years, especially if this plan plays out, and they will be buying new contracts for uranium to be sourced. So that's a huge deal. Japan has become very reliant on LNG, liquid natural gas, which that price has been skyrocketing for LNG. And so, another thing that came out in Japan Times, published 2 weeks ago, for the first time since Fukushima, sentiment for restarting and support for restarting plants in Japan, nuclear plants in Japan, is in the majority. The majority of the Japanese that were polled believe that they do want nuclear plants restarted in Japan. So that's really big. That's, over 10 years since Fukushima, and finally, it takes a very long time for these things sometimes. Finally, the majority of those polled do want nuclear plants to be restarted in Japan. So that's a really big factor. Rick Rule, he famously said for years and years and years that he doesn't believe that the bull market will be fully ready to go until there are significant Japanese restarts. And, I disagreed for that for quite a few years. And while I still generally don't think it's as important as the esteemed Mr. Rule does, I think that it's a big factor. It's a big factor. So the Japanese have a massive fleet that's just idled. I mean, restarting a number of reactors can really, really help them right now with energy security, with costs. I mean, even at the price of uranium currently, they can produce nuclear power probably cheaper than what they can do with natural gas and coal with the prices, the way that those prices have moved. So a very positive move for the sector, and just wanted to highlight that because I think that all of these elements matter. I don't think that the Japanese restarts are the hinge pin for this bull market. I think a lot has happened in the last few years that have made that not necessarily irrelevant, but made it less necessary. But the fact that it is happening and potentially will be happening faster is very, very bullish. So just one more arrow to add to the coffer for this uranium investment thesis. All right. I also wanted to mention and reiterate that if you are not a member of Uranium Insider Pro and you would like to receive a sample newsletter from us, click the link in the description and we will send you a previous month's newsletter. You can check it out, get an idea of the type of content we put out. We will be having a members webinar next Monday. That's a week from today on the 18th. And we have a very, very exciting guest that will be joining us for this webinar. This guest represents a company that we've recently positioned in, and we are very excited about that new position. So if you are a member, please join us for that webinar. And of course, if you can't join us live, that will be recorded and members can access that for streaming on our website at any time after that event. All right, take care, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow. Cheers.